When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind at speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.
Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing those stories to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. It doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can create an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to that journey. I'd like to welcome Steven Lopez to the show. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm really well. How are you, Drewbie?
Crushing the day, as you know. I want to jump right in, man. I want to hear your craziest sales story.
So, okay, I've got a couple, but I wanted to highlight something really quickly that's kind of like a before Call the Damn Leads and an after Call the Damn Leads, which is kind of why I was like, I really need this guy. So at the start of my career, didn't have everything that like you've helped me work through. So, flying blind into cold calls or, like live transfers and this sort of thing, right? But didn't have, the skill set that you've helped me out with. So I was on this one phone call and it was like, Janet is ready to talk about like 1515 Maple Street or whatever, right? So call gets transferred and we're having this conversation and I introduce myself and everything. And I'm referring to, the address that was given to me, right? And she's like, well, that's not what I'm interested in. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, but that's what the live transfer gave. And so, I was like, well, there are a few other units in this HOA, or is it one of those? And she's like, I'm not looking for an HOA. I was looking at this and I was looking at that and I don't understand it. And she kind of goes on and on about all this, just like, that's not what I was looking for. That's not what I was asking about. So finally, I just kind of stopped and I was like, I'm trying to be cool, calm, and collected and professional. But she's going off on me. And I'm like, you know what, lady? This is a free service, right? Like, I'm just here to help. And if you don't need my help, good luck to you. But this is a free service and all the best. Kind of like basically like, handle it yourself then. And she like stopped her cold and she was like, oh, well, actually, and I was like, no, have yourself a very good day. And I hung up. I was like, this lady, come on. This is years ago enough that like I had nothing to lose at the point because it was like, a rookie or whatever, but I was like, you know what, never mind. So that's a before story because, don't have the skill set that I've worked through with you, but that was definitely a before kind of conversation.
Yeah. I understand. I've had a couple of those over the years where, listen, not all business is good business. And at some point in your journey, you're going to have a moment where your frustrations come out. And we always pray that it's not overly aggressive or nothing really nasty gets said, but all of us get frustrated dealing with people. I mean, we're in the business of people, and so like this is just going to happen. But after that conversation, Steven, I'd be curious, like, okay, she calls, frustration, you have a moment of a freak out, right? You crash out, as the young kids say these days. A couple hours later, what's running through your mind after that?
Like in that one in specific?
Yeah, if you remember.
I definitely remember like sharing with like I was like at a boutique brokerage at the time, so I was just kind of like sharing. I was like, and then I told her this, and then I told her that. So everybody was laughing at it. In my head, I was like, well, that might not be the greatest way to get your reputation started, like, what if she really did remember my name as the agent at such and such, brokerage, and like, poof, there goes that, don't work with that guy. He's got no patience for you. So
good lesson indeed. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate you for, Steven, is like, as we've worked together, you're always open to feedback, right? You have your opinion, you have your thoughts on things, but you're very coachable and you're very much open to, hey, if you think there's a better way, let's explore it and see how that works. Is that something that you've always naturally had, or something that you've kind of had to develop over time?
Oh my gosh, this is not natural for me at all. This is all like relearned, reconditioned. I'm a Taurus, so generally, like, when my mind is there, my mind is there. So screw everything else, because like that's it. But there's also been enough instances through my career, whether it was the commercial real estate prior, to start off with before getting into residential, where you just have to admit that sure, there's like a hierarchy or a chain of command. But when I got into residential, this is when it was literally like, you are your own worst enemy. You are your own success. You are your own everything, right? Whether you give yourself a green light or whether you give yourself the red light, it's your doing. So I had to really sort of shake all that off. And I've had other masterminds and coaching and XYZ, and you kind of work through the process and you get a little bit of here and a little bit of there. And then, but yeah, it's just definitely something like I really had to like crack the shell, my own shell, and be like, I have to be very receptive to the right coaching, to the right message, to that right frequency of what the coach is providing. So it's definitely not natural for me.
I appreciate you sharing that. And part of the reason I asked is I know a lot of the listeners who are newer in the game, or hey, man, you even have been in sales for a long time and you've never really explored that side of personal development. There's definitely a little bit of an ego or a pride that we have to work through, of kind of just admitting, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And even though I think I know a lot of stuff, I'm not where I want to be. And so I have to be okay hearing things that may touch on some emotions, right? Make me feel like I'm not as good as I think I am. And it's all part of the game, right? Most of the time when you're being mentored or someone's offering you feedback, they're not trying to be rude. They're just trying to offer a different perspective. And I think that's always the thing that's interesting, because as humans, we think we got a big, broad perspective on how the world works, but like ultimately we're all very narrow focused and kind of just in our own little bubble. And so one thing I know in the real estate game, especially where you come from, I mean, you kind of touch on this. You can be your own worst enemy, and a lot of times there's a little bit of a hesitancy or a call reluctance around reaching out to prospects. Is that something you've ever experienced yourself?
Oh my gosh. that was like, the biggest roadblock, like the closed off ramp from the freeway, the canceled flight, like everything revolved around like finding an excuse to do other outreach, as opposed to just like calling. Because I think one of the issues for like realtors as you kind of come through your career is everyone will be very supportive and they'll say, "Well, just call them," right? Okay, but then what's your are you good with scripts? Are you not? Are you quick on your feet? Like this sort of stuff. So finding that right formula put together for yourself. But my gosh, like I would I'd be in my CRM and okay, I need to call Drewbie Wilson, and then I would look at his file. Oh, he hasn't opened an email in a while and he hasn't done this, and maybe I should text him, or maybe I should should I just every other thing to address what the CRM said, other than just calling him, right? Because you don't want to get that nasty phone or the nasty answer or a hang up or like whatever, like an F-bomb, all that stuff, So you're like, let me I'm just gonna send this guy like the sales drip and send him another email and hey, how's it going, and here's a property that you might like every excuse, totally every excuse.
And I appreciate you sharing that because it's so funny to me how anticlimactic most of the calls are, right? We put in this big workup and this whole to do of like, okay, there's like these emails and they haven't answered, so I don't know if they're interested. And so now I'm playing the song and dance. And then like, it's kind of like going on a date, right? You prepare for it and you get dressed up and you brush your teeth and you put on your cologne and you prepare and, you go to dinner and maybe you get really lucky and you guys go home together and, you make it 45 seconds and then it's like, all right, now what?
Yeah.
Like calling is the same thing. You spend all this time trying to like make it super sexy when at the end of the day, like it's going to take 60 seconds.
Correct.
You're going to call 90% of the time. People aren't going to answer the phone. So you're not even going to get to play the game anyway, but you've spent 20 minutes in your head trying to figure out like every scenario that could possibly come up. And so I appreciate what you said, Steven, about you internally have to understand how do you best handle awkward conversation. Mm-hmm. Are you someone that needs the scripts? Are you someone who can just be silly and crack jokes and just kind of make light of the situation? Do you have a natural ability to be empathetic and ask questions? Like you explore that a little bit and then you can really lean in on it. And Steven, I know you had mentioned one of the things that we've worked on for you was, hey, I just need a basic outline of what to say. Like I don't need the entire robotic portion, but like an outline was really helpful for you, right?
Yeah. Because, when I get cold calls and I can immediately pick up like they're reading their script, like, good afternoon, dot, 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 dot. Like, oh, dude, what do you want? Like, what are you calling for? Like, no, my house is fine. I don't need a roof, like, this sort of thing or whatever. So I'm already going into that knowing that like this is the general public and they get auto dialed all freaking afternoon, right? So I need to be as natural, just humanistic as possible, but just so what I just really needed was just like kind of like a loose sketch or a loose outline of just like I guess you could call it icebreakers, but just sort of something like a very natural phrase to use that would in turn like help their guard come down. And then I can kind of pick up from that point, then I can do my own stuff where like, oh, she's starting to open up. He's a little reluctant still. This guy is very business only, but I just needed those finer, simple little things to help me like break through, and make it as natural sounding as possible. And so it's helped out a lot. It's been a huge, I hate to say game changer, but for me, it truly has been. I just needed that like loose outline of talking points.
Appreciate that. And yeah, most people do. Like most people are going to sound like a robot if you give them a full-blown script. It's just the foundation of like 6 or 7 bullets, maybe a couple questions that you can ask. Because ultimately, like I believe that the great sales professionals, they just ask really good questions. Mm-hmm. And then they try to just let the other person talk.
Yes.
And one thing that you've done, and I think is helpful for you, is you've kind of niched into a very specific process or a couple of processes that there's a market for, people are dealing with, and you have 2 to 3 really strong solutions for them. What made you decide? Real estate's there's a lot of ways to skin a cat in real estate, man. What made you decide to go the route that you went, for what you do?
Well, definitely a combination of things, right? On the bigger picture, having such a 13-ish years in design and construction, and like doing commercial and corporate real estate, right? So having like that skill set to start off with, and I knew I never wanted to work in corporate America. Like after that 13 years, I was like, no, thank you. I'm done with it, right? Like I've seen some of the worst conference rooms in Manhattan and had like either my ass handed to me or handed someone their ass, just like I'm so never doing corporate America again. So I was like, okay, on the big picture, like what do I do with all this? Okay, so then I get the residential license. And it's no secret. It's like your first 2 years are absolutely the hardest and the worst. And, no one remembers that you're now a realtor or gives a shit, pardon my language. Or, we're so excited for you. We don't really want a rookie. This is a lot of money on the line, especially in California, right? Like, this house is, 900,000, 1.5, 1.22, whatever that, we want someone who's not a rookie. So there's that. So you go through a lot of phases, like, what's your, what is going to distinguish you? And so it's all these experiences you have with like certain clients, like, I never want to work with that type of client again. Da, 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 da. But as the process goes, I started to realize, like, one of the biggest issues that LA has, of course, is gentrification, right? Like, it's kind of like, kind of like wildfire, right? Certain neighborhoods are like out of control. And then I started to think about like my own experience as a native Angelino, and my parents bought a house in obviously like a Latin neighborhood. And how did my parents actually like prosper from it in the end, right? So then I started to think, like, how can I replicate that for other people who are in, the working class neighborhoods, the Latin neighborhoods, the brown neighborhoods, whatever it may be? How can I help them? How can I, prevent? How can I, come in and show them, this is your house, your property is your biggest asset, right? Like, don't sell it for short. Don't sell it to, it sounds great that they're going to give you all this cash, but did you know it's at minimum 30% to anywhere to 50% less than what it's worth, right? So let me help you actually really cash out, like, you prosper from what you've worked so hard for the past 35, 40 years as a parent and a homeowner and a family man, So that, you have to go through a lot of different experiences and clients to realize, like, do I want to do luxury? No, I don't actually. Like, I'm not selling Sunset. I'm not selling this boulevard and that boulevard. Like, forget that, So you have to go through all these little things and eventually figure out, like, this is my lane and this is what I'm good at. And then this is how I can really help the neighborhoods I came from to not get shortchanged just because, I'm a senior citizen and I want to move out of the big city, right? Profit as much as possible and let me show you how. So that's how
I really appreciate that. And it's such a cool story. And I'm a believer that's the kind of stuff that really builds a brand and helps you grow well beyond just like the transactional nature of real estate. Mm-hmm. Is when you're truly going back into the community and looking at, hey, how can I take care of the people from where I came? How can I make sure they're not being taken advantage of by outsiders and slick talkers? And, there's something to be said about recognizing that luxury wasn't for you. There's nothing wrong with luxury, but if it's not for you, right, why try to fake it until you make it? Why try to go play in a space that doesn't align with who you are and how you operate? And I think there's so many people out there who make that mistake early on of, okay, I've got to go and spend all this money on suits and this fancy car and all these things to try to look the part in hopes that someone will believe me enough to give me that chance. And it can work. I'm not saying it doesn't. Like, there are people that pull it off. And also, there are other ways to make money in real estate. There are other people who need help. And so if you can find a place where you're passionate and excited and it gives you reason to really develop a skill set and understanding of that specific product or service, Steven, you're a great example of what can happen, right? We're just talking about this, the growth that you're achieving in the last 6 months to a year by just implementing some of these strategies and getting really intentional about it, man. So it's just so fun to watch that kind of stuff happen for someone.
Thank you so much. It's part of that, what is the expression, like when the student's ready, the teacher appears type of thing. So there's a little bit of that. But I also am very much, I've been of the mindset for a very long time that, like, timing is everything. and you are always at the point of which you need to be, right? So whether I met you 3 years ago, or if I met you, or it takes another 3 years to meet you, all those connections happen at the right time. So I knew that for my business, this was the type of coaching, of mentoring that, like, okay, this is like my last biggest flaw, my last biggest hurdle, because I can do so many other things, in prospecting and outreach, but this is the one that hinders me the most, So that's why, this is why I appreciate, like, you so much and everything you've done. And for example, so I had a listing appointment, excuse me, I first talked to her 2 weeks ago, and last week was the actual meeting. And I shared that with her, that, like, because, her husband passed and she's a new widow and this and that. And on my first call with her, she's like, wait, were you the realtor that came by and knocked on my door, like, earlier this week? And I said, no, that wasn't me. But I said to her, because, I had my little list of, like, the, like, phrases. And then I said to her, I was like, well, I think this is probably just you're manifesting the help you need, and the universe is providing. And now it's really just up to you to select who you feel most comfortable working with. Right. And so, having said that, I could hear her own tone soften a bunch, and she really resonated with that. And then by the end of the conversation, she's like, are you available next Thursday? I'm like, yeah. So, but it's, taking, I definitely can, like, hear the tone in someone's voice and have that conversation, but getting onto the phone and just starting the call are drastically different things, but it's made a gigantic impact in my business already, and we're going to be on market by, like, the first week of April. So, like, awesome. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And she's lovely. She's such a sweet, sweet gal. I'm so happy to, like, be representing her, So timing is everything, and just the universe will bring you together when you need. And I really needed this. And then I saw your thing on Facebook. I'm like, hello, Drewbie.
Well, Steven, man, it's an honor to work with you. It's always a pleasure getting to hear more about the things that you're implementing and seeing the results. And while we could probably sit and nerd out for many, many hours, I do want to respect your time. How can the listeners come find you, follow you, check out more of your stuff? Maybe they're in their area. What's the best way to come check you out, man?
Best way is my Instagram, which is stevenlopez.realtor. That's my most active. You'll see listings, you'll see what's available, you see construction updates, design updates, all that kind of stuff. That would be, like, number one social would be that. So follow me there. Perfect.
Simple and easy. That's the way to do it, man. And honestly, I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here and share some of your story. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, Drewbie. This has been a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of podcasts, but I was very excited. I was like, I'm doing this one.
Heck yeah. Well, listen, if you guys enjoyed the show, if you got some value out of it, go share it on social media. Tag me, tag Steven over on Instagram. Let the world know you got something from this. Maybe you have a story. Maybe you want to, get out there and share it with the world. I'd love to have you as a guest. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Get yourself signed up. Get on there. Grab a hat, t-shirt, something while you're there. Support the show. You guys know what to do. We'll see you next time. Go call the damn leads.
When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind that speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.